What if I told you that attraction is rarely created by saying more? In fact, some of the most attractive men say less. Most younger men think attraction comes from having the perfect pickup line, the funniest joke, or the most impressive story. They believe they must constantly prove their value. But behavioral psychology reveals something surprising. The people who create the strongest emotional impact are often the ones who make others feel seen, understood, and important. And there are two simple words that many confident older men use naturally. Those words are, tell me, just two words. Yet they can completely change the dynamic of a conversation. Why? Because tell me triggers one of the strongest psychological desires in human nature, the desire to be heard. Research in social neuroscience has shown that talking about ourselves activates reward centers in the brain. In some studies, discussing personal experiences stimulates neural pathways associated with pleasure and motivation. Think about that for a moment. When someone gets the opportunity to share their thoughts, dreams, frustrations, or experiences, their brain literally rewards them for it. Most people interrupt. Most people wait for their turn to speak. Most people are focused on themselves. But when a man calmly says, tell me, he immediately separates himself from the crowd. Most men spend years searching for the perfect words to attract women, believing that attraction is hidden inside some secret phrase, some clever line, or some magical combination of confidence and charm. But what if everything you've been taught is backwards? What if the strongest emotional connection doesn't begin when you speak, but when you invite someone else to speak? And what if two simple words have the power to do exactly that? Those two words are, tell me. They seem almost too simple to matter. They don't sound impressive. They don't sound romantic. They don't sound powerful. Yet behavioral scientists have discovered something remarkable about human nature. The human brain is wired with a deep desire to be understood. More than money, more than status, and sometimes even more than pleasure. People crave the feeling that someone truly sees them. Researchers at Harvard found that talking about ourselves activates the same reward centers in the brain that respond to food, money, and other pleasurable experiences. Think about that for a moment. Every time someone shares a personal story, reveals a dream, expresses a fear, or talks about their life, their brain receives a small neurological reward. In a very real sense, the brain enjoys being heard. Now imagine what happens when a man creates the perfect environment for that reward to occur. Imagine a woman mentions something meaningful about her life. Most people immediately interrupt with their own story. Most people compete for attention. Most people are waiting for their turn to talk. But one man pauses, looks her in the eyes, and simply says, tell me. Suddenly, the entire emotional atmosphere changes. Without realizing it, she experiences something rare in today's world. She experiences genuine attention, and genuine attention has become one of the most valuable social currencies on Earth. Scientists have repeatedly warned that modern technology is shortening attention spans and increasing feelings of loneliness. Despite being more connected digitally than any generation in history, millions of people report feeling emotionally disconnected. Social media provides visibility, but visibility is not the same as understanding. Being seen is not the same as being heard. This is why those two words carry such unexpected power. Because when someone says, tell me, they are offering something increasingly rare: presence, focus, interest, respect. The human nervous system notices these signals immediately. Researchers studying interpersonal communication discovered that people form impressions within seconds of an interaction. Long before logic becomes involved, the brain begins scanning for signs of trust, safety, and acceptance. These evaluations happen automatically and often unconsciously. When someone feels listened to, stress hormones can decrease, while feelings of social bonding increase. The effect is subtle but powerful. This is why some conversations leave you energized, while others leave you exhausted. Your brain is constantly evaluating whether you are being accepted or ignored. Now consider what happens when someone is finally given space to express themselves without interruption. Their body language relaxes. Their voice becomes more expressive. Their emotions become more visible. And with every passing moment, they feel increasingly connected to the person listening. Many people believe attraction begins with physical appearance. And while appearance can create initial interest, psychological research consistently suggests that emotional connection plays a major role in long-term attraction. People remember how you make them feel. They remember whether they felt judged or accepted, ignored or valued, dismissed or understood. And tell me communicates understanding before a single story is even shared. But there is another fascinating psychological principle at work. It's called self-disclosure. Researchers have discovered that when people gradually reveal personal information about themselves, feelings of closeness tend to increase. The more meaningful the disclosure, the stronger the potential connection. This means that every time someone feels comfortable enough to share something personal, the emotional bond deepens. Not because of manipulation, not because of tricks, but because vulnerability creates trust, and trust creates connection. The remarkable thing is that "Tell Me" acts like a key that unlocks this process naturally. Instead of forcing conversation, it invites conversation. Instead of demanding attention, it gives attention. And human beings are naturally drawn toward people who make them feel emotionally safe. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. For thousands of years, survival depended on social belonging. Being accepted by a group increased the chances of protection, cooperation, and survival. Being rejected often carried serious consequences. As a result, the human brain evolved to pay extraordinary attention to social signals. Even today, studies show that social rejection activates some of the same brain regions associated with physical pain. Think about how shocking that is. The brain can interpret emotional exclusion in ways that resemble physical suffering. Now reverse that experience. Imagine the emotional impact when someone feels included, appreciated, and genuinely heard. That feeling is powerful. That feeling is memorable, and that feeling often becomes associated with the person creating it. This is one reason certain individuals seem naturally magnetic. They aren't necessarily the loudest people in the room. They aren't always the most attractive. They aren't always the funniest, but they possess a rare ability. They make other people feel important. The late psychologist Carl Rogers, one of the most influential figures in humanistic psychology, believed that deep listening was one of the most transformative experiences a person could have. When people feel truly heard, something changes inside them. Defensiveness decreases. Trust increases. Authenticity emerges. The walls begin to come down, and that's where real connection begins. The irony is that most people spend their lives trying to be interesting, but the people who create the strongest emotional impact become interested. That single shift changes everything. When a man says, "Tell me," he communicates confidence without ever mentioning confidence. He demonstrates patience without announcing patience. He displays emotional intelligence without claiming emotional intelligence. Because truly confident people are not desperate to prove their value. They are secure enough to focus on someone else. And security is attractive, not because it impresses people, but because it makes people feel comfortable. As the conversation unfolds, something even more powerful begins to happen. The other person starts associating positive emotions with the interaction itself. They feel heard, they feel respected, they feel understood. And human memory is strongly influenced by emotion. Neuroscientists have shown that emotionally meaningful experiences are often remembered more vividly than neutral ones. This means a conversation built on genuine listening can leave a lasting impression long after the words themselves are forgotten. That's the hidden secret behind those two simple words. The words themselves are not magic. The magic is the emotional experience they create. In a world where everyone wants attention, the person who gives attention becomes unforgettable. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, the person who listens becomes rare. And in a world overflowing with noise, the quiet invitation of "Tell me" can feel more powerful than the most carefully crafted speech. So the next time you find yourself searching for the perfect thing to say, remember this. The strongest connections are not built by talking more. They are built by understanding more. Because deep inside every human being is a desire that never disappears. The desire to be seen. The desire to be heard. The desire to know that their thoughts, feelings, fears, and dreams matter. And sometimes, all it takes to unlock that desire is two simple words. Tell me. Most men believe attraction is a performance. They believe confidence is something you display, something you announce, something you prove. They spend years perfecting their appearance, rehearsing their stories, and searching for the perfect words, convinced that attraction belongs to the loudest voice in the room. But what if the truth is far more unsettling? What if the men who create the strongest emotional impact are often the ones who speak the least? The answer lies deep inside human psychology. For decades, researchers have studied what makes certain individuals naturally magnetic. Surprisingly, the findings rarely point toward dominance, bragging, or constant self-promotion. Instead, they reveal something far more powerful: genuine curiosity. The ability to become deeply interested in another person. The willingness to listen without immediately turning the conversation back to yourself. The confidence to ask questions rather than deliver speeches. At first glance, this seems counterintuitive. Society teaches men that they must impress. They must prove their value. They must showcase achievements, intelligence, status, and success. Yet psychological research repeatedly suggests that people are often more attracted to those who make them feel important than those who simply try to appear important. Think about the last conversation that truly stayed with you. Chances are, it wasn't because someone talked endlessly about themselves. It was because someone made you feel understood. Someone made you feel seen. Someone made you feel like your thoughts mattered. That experience is far more powerful than most people realize. Neuroscientists have discovered that social connection influences the brain in profound ways. Meaningful interactions can trigger the release of neurotransmitters associated with trust, bonding, and emotional well-being. In contrast, feeling ignored or dismissed can activate stress responses that leave lasting emotional impressions. This means every conversation creates a biological reaction. Every interaction changes how people feel. Every moment of genuine attention leaves a psychological footprint. And this is where confident men separate themselves from insecure men. The insecure man enters a conversation wondering, how can I impress her? The confident man enters wondering, who is she? One seeks approval. The other seeks understanding. One performs. The other connects. And the difference is enormous. Researchers studying self-confidence have repeatedly found that truly confident individuals tend to feel less pressure to prove themselves. They are less dependent on external validation because their sense of worth is not constantly under threat. This creates a fascinating effect. The less someone needs approval, the more relaxed they become. The more relaxed they become, the more comfortable others feel around them. And comfort is often the foundation of attraction. Many people mistake confidence for dominance. But dominance can create intimidation. Confidence creates safety. Dominance demands attention. Confidence earns attention. Dominance says, look at me. Confidence says, I'm comfortable enough to focus on you. That distinction changes everything. Consider what happens during a typical conversation. Most people are not listening. Psychologists estimate that much of the time, individuals are mentally preparing their next response while the other person is still speaking. Their mouths are closed, but internally, they're already talking. They're waiting, competing, planning, comparing. Very few people are fully present. Very few people are genuinely curious. And because genuine curiosity is rare, it becomes incredibly valuable. When someone encounters a person who is truly interested in their thoughts, emotions, experiences, and perspectives, it feels different immediately. The nervous system notices, the mind notices, the heart notices. Suddenly the conversation stops feeling like a competition. It begins feeling like a connection. And connection is what people remember. There is another psychological principle that makes curiosity so powerful. Human beings are naturally drawn toward individuals who make them feel psychologically safe. Safety isn't only physical. It is emotional. Emotional safety occurs when people feel they can express themselves without fear of judgment, ridicule, or rejection. Research in social psychology has shown that emotional safety increases openness, trust, and relationship satisfaction. In simple terms, people reveal more of themselves when they feel accepted. And the person who creates that acceptance becomes unforgettable. This is why many older men often possess an advantage that has nothing to do with age itself. Life teaches lessons that cannot be learned from books. After enough successes and failures, many older men stop chasing approval. They stop performing. They stop trying to impress everyone they meet. Instead, they become observers, listeners, students of human nature. They become curious, and that curiosity changes the energy of every interaction. Rather than entering conversations to prove their worth, they enter to discover someone else's story. That shift may seem small, but psychologically, it is massive, because people can feel the difference. Humans are extraordinarily sensitive to hidden intentions. Studies suggest that we unconsciously evaluate facial expressions, vocal tone, body language, and micro-behaviors within moments of meeting someone. Long before words are analyzed, emotions are detected. People may not consciously know why they feel comfortable around someone, but their brains know, their nervous systems know, their instincts know. When curiosity is genuine, it communicates respect. When curiosity is genuine, it communicates confidence. When curiosity is genuine, it communicates emotional maturity. And these qualities consistently rank among the traits people find attractive in long-term relationships. But perhaps the most surprising part is this. Curiosity doesn't just benefit the person being listened to, it benefits the listener as well. Research suggests that maintaining curiosity throughout life is associated with greater psychological resilience, improved learning, stronger relationships, and even better overall well-being. Curious individuals tend to remain mentally engaged with the world around them. They adapt more effectively. They connect more deeply. They experience life more fully. In other words, curiosity is not merely attractive, it is transformative. Yet modern culture often encourages the opposite. People are taught to build personal brands, promote themselves, market themselves, broadcast themselves. The result is a world filled with voices competing for attention. But attention is not connection. Being noticed is not the same as being valued, and being admired is not the same as being understood. This is why genuine curiosity cuts through the noise. It satisfies a need that many people don't even realize they have. The need to feel significant. The need to feel understood. The need to feel that their inner world matters. When someone experiences that feeling, they rarely forget it. Years from now, they may not remember the exact words that were spoken. They may not remember every detail of the conversation, but they will remember how they felt. They will remember the sense of comfort, the sense of acceptance, the sense that someone was truly present. And presence is becoming increasingly rare. In a distracted world, presence feels extraordinary. In a noisy world, listening feels powerful. In a self-obsessed world, curiosity feels almost revolutionary. That is why the most confident individuals often appear effortless. Their confidence does not come from trying harder. It comes from needing less validation, less approval, less attention. Because they are not focused on proving their value, they are free to discover value in others. And that freedom changes everything. It changes conversations. It changes relationships. It changes attraction itself. So the next time you think confidence means talking more, showing more, or proving more, remember this. The strongest confidence is often invisible. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand recognition. It doesn't compete for the spotlight. Instead, it reveals itself through patience, through listening, through genuine interest, through curiosity. Because the most attractive person in the room is rarely the one trying hardest to be noticed. It's often the one who makes everyone else feel noticed. And in the end, that simple shift, from seeking attention to seeking understanding, may be one of the most powerful psychological advantages a person can ever possess. Most people think attraction begins with beauty. They think it starts with appearance, status, money, or charm. They believe the strongest connections are formed through impressive first impressions and perfect words. But decades of psychological research reveal a truth that is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. The people who leave the biggest impact on our lives are often not the ones who look the best, spoke the loudest, or commanded the most attention. They are the people who made us feel something. Emotion is the hidden force behind human memory. Neuroscientists have discovered that emotionally charged experiences are processed differently by the brain than ordinary events. The stronger the emotional response, the more likely the experience is to be remembered. This means attraction is not simply about what someone says or does. It is about the emotional experience that person creates. Think back to a conversation you still remember years later. Chances are you do not remember every word. You probably cannot recall every detail. But you remember how you felt. You remember the comfort, the excitement, the understanding, the connection. That is because emotions leave fingerprints on memory, and attraction follows those fingerprints. Scientists studying human relationships have repeatedly found that emotional responsiveness, is one of the strongest predictors of connection and long-term relationship satisfaction. People do not merely want attention, they want emotional understanding. They want someone who recognizes what they are feeling without forcing them to explain every detail. This desire runs deeper than most people realize. Human beings are social creatures by design. From the moment we are born, survival depends on connection. Researchers have shown that infants who receive emotional responsiveness from caregivers develop stronger feelings of security and trust. The brain learns early that connection equals safety. That programming never fully disappears. Even as adults, we continue searching for people who make us feel emotionally secure, people who make us feel understood, people who make us feel accepted, people who make us feel seen, and that search influences attraction far more than many realize. Modern neuroscience has revealed something extraordinary. Emotional pain and physical pain share some of the same neural pathways. In other words, the brain often processes social rejection in ways surprisingly similar to physical injury. Think about that. A harsh rejection, a painful breakup, a moment of humiliation. These experiences do not simply hurt emotionally. The brain can respond as though something physically harmful has happened. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine feeling accepted, valued, appreciated, understood. The nervous system responds differently. Stress begins to decrease. Defensiveness starts to soften. Trust begins to grow. And trust is where genuine attraction often takes root. This is why emotional connection is so powerful. It is not just psychological, it is biological. Every meaningful interaction creates chemical reactions throughout the body. Studies have linked positive social connection to healthier stress responses, improved emotional well-being, and greater life satisfaction. Strong relationships have even been associated with longer life expectancy in large-scale health research. The implications are staggering. The quality of our connections can influence the quality of our lives. Yet most people focus on the wrong things. They focus on being impressive, being attractive, being admired. They spend enormous energy trying to become desirable. But attraction is rarely about making people admire you. It is about making people feel something meaningful when they are around you. Consider the difference. Admiration creates distance. Connection creates closeness. Admiration says, "You are impressive." Connection says, "You understand me." And when forced to choose, many people unconsciously value understanding more than admiration, because understanding satisfies a deeper human need. Psychologists often describe this as the need for belonging, the desire to know that someone accepts us, flaws and all, the desire to feel emotionally safe enough to reveal our authentic selves, the desire to stop performing and simply be understood. When someone creates that experience, attraction can emerge naturally, not because of manipulation, not because of strategy, but because emotional connection fulfills something fundamental inside us. One fascinating study after another has demonstrated that people tend to feel closer to those who respond with empathy and genuine interest. Active listening, emotional validation, and authentic engagement consistently strengthen interpersonal bonds. These behaviors may seem simple, but their effects are profound. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, the person who truly listens becomes unforgettable. In a world where everyone is competing for attention, the person who offers understanding becomes rare, and rarity creates value. The problem is that modern life often pushes people in the opposite direction. Technology gives us constant communication, but not always meaningful connection. Many conversations occur while people are distracted by notifications, screens, and endless streams of information. People are physically present, but mentally elsewhere. As a result, genuine emotional connection has become increasingly uncommon. And when something becomes uncommon, it becomes powerful. Imagine speaking to someone and realizing they are fully focused on you. No distractions, no interruptions, no judgment, just complete presence. Most people experience this so rarely that it feels extraordinary. The emotional impact can be immediate. Walls come down, trust increases, vulnerability emerges. And vulnerability is where true connection begins. Researchers have long recognized that self-disclosure plays a critical role in building closeness. As individuals gradually reveal meaningful aspects of themselves, relationships often deepen. But self-disclosure only happens when people feel safe. People do not reveal their fears to critics. They do not reveal their dreams to people who dismiss them. They reveal themselves to those who make them feel understood. This is why emotional intelligence is consistently rated as one of the most attractive traits in relationship studies. Emotional intelligence is not about having all the answers. It is not about being perfect. It is about recognizing emotions, responding appropriately, and creating an environment where others feel comfortable expressing themselves. In practical terms, emotional intelligence helps people feel safe, and safety allows connection, and connection fuels attraction. The most magnetic individuals understand this, whether consciously or unconsciously. They know that people remember feelings more than facts. They know that emotional experiences outlast clever lines. They know that genuine understanding leaves a deeper impression than temporary excitement. Years later, people may forget the jokes, forget the stories, forget the details, but they rarely forget how someone made them feel. That memory lingers, sometimes for decades, sometimes for a lifetime. Because emotions become part of the story we tell ourselves about our experiences. They become part of our identity, part of our relationships, part of our memories. This is why emotional connection remains one of the most powerful forces in human attraction. Not because it is dramatic, not because it is flashy, but because it speaks directly to something ancient within us. The need to belong, the need to connect, the need to know that our thoughts, fears, hopes, and struggles matter to someone else. At the deepest level, attraction is not merely about being desired, it is about being understood. And understanding creates a feeling that no amount of status, appearance, or charm can fully replace. So the next time you wonder why certain people leave such a lasting impression, remember this. It was probably not their appearance, not their wealth, not their clever words. It was the emotional experience they created. The feeling of acceptance, the feeling of safety, the feeling of connection. Because in the end, human beings may forget almost everything else. But they rarely forget the people who made them feel truly understood. And that is why emotional connection is not just a part of attraction, it is often the very foundation upon which attraction is built.